Alright, guys, welcome back to the podcast. Today, I wanted to talk a little bit about Einstein's routine, his typical daily routine, but also just overall talk about routines, kind of mostly as it relates to like school and work weeks, but just, life in general. But I think overall, the classic adult, is working. I mean, I know, there are variations. Some people are, self-made and maybe don't have to depend on corporations to pay them for an hourly wage. Some people are, maybe on disability, not able to work. And there's various types of situations. I understand that. But just speaking to the mainstream work culture of things, just in general, overall, when we're in school, we're trained to go to school for the purpose of work. At the least you learn, you socialize, you get a social circle. You have contacts, some kind of you know, uh, you have colleagues all over the place. Like, if I think of all the people I've met through all the school programs I've been in, those are a lot of connections that are now spread out through multiple states, multiple countries. I mean, me and all these people aren't like complete besties, but if I needed like some kind of information about something in Connecticut or Indiana or multiple different places in California or Vegas or on the East Coast or in some, other countries, have people that I know who have moved to different places. We all met at the same schools and then went our own ways. And we can still be in contact if we choose to do so. So that was kind of like, for a while, that was kind of how, mainstream America pretty much operated, right? Like, and I've noticed a shift, so yes, we're still in a pandemic. Yes, we're still, expected to be cautious. And, some places like in China with the COVID-0 lockdowns and things like that. I mean, like, things vary around the world. But I did definitely notice, just when I zoomed out a couple steps and took a look at what I was seeing, I definitely noticed that there was a difference of people and situations and lifestyles funneling into the pandemic and the output once everybody got processed through the pandemic, if you want to call it that. Like before, it was like there are all these standards. You go to school for this amount of time. You get these degrees in this way, and you get this. You take these steps, and by the time you're 65, you're supposed to have enough to retire off of, and that's when your wealth is accumulated basically for retirement. I mean, typically that's kind of what we've been taught, get a job, stay in the job, get a career, stay in the career, only have that one career, have a pension, have a retirement, have a, just be settled through one company, through one type of site, make your life work in that way. That was kind of typically what was expected of most of us. But I noticed during the pandemic, when all that was taken away from the majority, or even if it maybe, I don't know if it was the majority, but a large portion of the population, once that got taken away, people started sitting there indoors with their thoughts, with their families, with their housemates, with their roommates, with their partners, with, by themselves. And we're able to just, focus on, let's see what I actually liked about this. What did I like about going to work that I'm not able to do when I'm sitting in lockdown in the house for multiple weeks, months on end? What did I like about having the option to sell my house? What did I like about having the option to go get groceries, go into work, all that kind of stuff? People definitely were focused on what was missing when they had to stay home. And I don't know which order this went in, but then eventually, I think people also were focused on what they didn't miss, all the stuff that they didn't like, all the stuff that they noticed they weren't able to benefit from. I mean, a lot of people had unemployment, where, it wasn't uncommon to hear about people making more money from unemployment than they were at their jobs. It wasn't uncommon to hear about people either way, like too much stress from being with the people that you live with, that you share a house space with, being around them too much and realizing, hey, these relationships maybe aren't good for me, on this level of, close, tight spaces, being together all dang day and night, with nowhere else to go. Like, their habits, their routines start getting to others. There were a lot of divorces that happened. And then I also saw a lot of people move in together. I saw a lot of my friends in relationships get into relationships, stronger relationships, move in together. So I've seen multiple sides to things. I mean, I've got some friends that are engaged. Y'all know who y'all are. Congratulations. I know some friends that I would say are life partners. You know, I would just, I just look, when I take a few steps back, it's like people were able to kind of strip away a bunch of the stuff that wasn't working. So now we're at a phase where work sites are kind of talking, like Chick-fil-A, talking about like a 3-day work week of about 12-hour shifts, per day. And then once a month or something, where they get like a full week off or something? I can't remember, but there are different places that are trying the 4-day work weeks. I myself am currently trying a 4-day work week. One finding that they mentioned with the 4-day work week was that they find that, at least through some of the research, that people are getting about 7.5 hours of sleep versus people who work 5 days a week, 40 hours, sleeping about 6.5 hours on average per night. Did I say per week? Per night, I meant 7.5 hours per night versus 6.5 hours per night, a full extra hour. So you look at things like that, like pay rates, lifestyle satisfaction, relationship satisfaction, sleep, overall health, being able to work out, all these types of things, doing errands, chores, spending time with your loved ones, doing hobbies, artistic, creative interests, and things like that. Okay, so we're definitely seeing a shift in people trying to get what they want to get instead of just following what they were taught to do. A lot of people are questioning these things and saying, okay, do I keep doing that when I don't feel like it was working and I feel like, yeah, my job was exploiting me all these years, or do I go do something else? There's the quiet quitting. What I interpret quiet quitting as is, do I give the best of my energy and the best of my weekday energy to my job, or do I give that energy back to myself? That's what I see quiet quitting as. That's kind of my interpretation of it at the moment. Now, quiet quitting isn't quitting. It's not falsifying any information. It's not ignoring jobs. It's not avoiding, responsibilities. It's basically working up to the point where you meet the expectations of productivity and not volunteering yourself to do more work before your work hours, after staying later after your work hours, doing stuff that's going to require you to work more on the weekends, taking on extra tasks when you're not getting extra pay for those extra tasks, or taking on extra tasks when you're not wanting to do it, but you're just doing it because, you want to make like a good impression or something. And it's very controversial. I'm not even going to get into that, but I said we were going to talk about kind of what I was learning from Einstein's routine. So I might get some of this wrong because I'm just going by my memory, but from what I understood, from what I researched about it, he would sleep 10 hours a night. Most of us don't sleep 10 hours a night ever, almost. I definitely don't sleep 10 hours a night. I can't remember the last time I did. I mean, even when I had COVID, I don't think I even slept that long. I actually wasn't super tired when I had COVID, but I probably have slept 10 hours when I was like sick at some point in time, because when I get ill, I tend to get fatigued. With COVID, I didn't get fatigued. I had a lot of energy because all I could eat was fruit, and I was eating fruit for like multiple days on end, and I was wired, guys. Like, I don't know. I've never eaten that much fruit in my life, I don't think, and it was the only thing that tasted like it should to me, and so I just ate so much of it, and I was so energetic. Like, even more so than coffee. It was a better kind of energy than coffee, but I had nowhere to take it because I was like, I have COVID. I'm like laying in bed, super energetic and wired, and it was just a mess. I was like, I can't even hardly podcast because I freaking have COVID. So that was weird. 10 hours though. 10 hours a night. Sleeping. There was something about him not wearing socks because of getting holes in them. I wear socks, but I don't really know what the issue is with holes in socks. I mean, like, I'm the kind of person though that buys so many socks. Like, I think it was like sometime towards the end of summer when I spent like $65 at like Target on like socks and underwear because I thought I left some of my stuff at the hotel, but just on like socks and underwear. I didn't buy that much, but just with inflation it just ended up costing a whole lot of money. But yeah, socks, you can buy them, buy new ones and you won't get holes. I mean, I don't know, I feel like, but if you walk a lot and do a lot of activities, and if you have certain shoes that rub a certain way, you will get holes more often. I don't know, whatever. I'm not really gonna talk about socks that much, but I mean, like, I would say there is something to the barefoot lifestyle, walking around on the earth without shoes on, walking around in the dirt, in the soil, in the sand, in the sunlight, with skin being bare. I mean, I'm not saying like you have to go nudist, but I'm just saying like, your skin absorbs vitamins, and there's nutritional value in sunlight. There's proven, health value to, having contact with the earth, like skin having contact with the earth, for conductive reasons, and, just that kind of thing. So, and there is this controversy between, rubber soled shoes that makes it so you don't have that conductive, situation going on. That's kind of like what people say. I guess if you have different types of shoes, like if they're full leather or something like that, I guess it would be different. But like, say for example, if you're working on your computer or something, they have these mats that you're supposed to disconnect the battery and everything, but they have these mats that are like almost rubberish, that basically makes it so you don't get like electrocuted. So yeah, like, rubber soled shoes doesn't really help you with that. It kind of, I don't know. There's a lot. Look into it. It's called earthing. Some people say grounding. Some people say earthing. But people have tested it. They've put. I know someone who's tested it that said that it helped and worked. They've put a type of like a mat that they made, on their like bedding, or like nearby their bedding, and they've put a made it so they had conductive materials outside their door that would, outside their window. They would have this wiring go like into the ground, right? Like into the soil, and then in through the window. It's thin enough that you could still close your window. I mean, if you live in terrible weather states where it's like winter weather, snowing and stuff, you probably want your window all the way closed, but it's like it's closed enough. And you have it connected to this type of mat that basically you're picking up, the energy from outside, the natural energy from the soil outside, when you're on that mat. So people put it like as a bed, or they put it maybe on the floor and they spend some time standing on it. That's for people who maybe don't get out enough without their shoes and socks on, just barefoot. If you live in a city like I do, it's like there's not really all that much soil you can be walking around, unless you have like, there's always little yards and parks, and I'm lucky enough to live close enough to a beach, but usually, you're not having like all kinds of places where you can just be walking and walking for miles without your shoes on, like that you have to go out of your way to find that, or just find small places where you can do it for a long time. I wasn't really trying to go on this whole tangent, but another thing like Einstein would do would be his breakfast. They said he would eat about 2 eggs and have like 2 eggs and maybe some mushrooms for breakfast with coffee. And they did mention that he was a coffee drinker, but he would do this from, I think it was from about 8:30 to 9:30, or 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. It was like about an hour period of time where he was eating his food and reading the newspaper. So this is just a typical morning, an hour, and starting work. He would start around 10 a.m. And then would come home in the afternoon, have lunch and a nap. And I don't recall exactly the end of the day, like when the day would end, but it seemed like he was able to get a lot more done. And this is a theme that you see with a lot of people who have this these like have been very successful in life, is you see a lot of these patterns. I mean, I look at people like Biaheza, people like Graham Stephan, like younger kind of millennial age people that you kind of study their schedule sometimes too, and you see it's not uncommon for people to be having coffee or bulletproof coffee first thing in the morning, for people to be having like eggs for breakfast, not really like the lumberjack breakfast or like the, you know, classic giant diner breakfast, but just a couple eggs and something with it. I know Biaheza does an avocado with 2 eggs and some coffee. I know Graham Stephan does coffee. I don't remember if he has eggs or what. I've seen a lot of people who do oats. Like these are the typical, not, I don't know if it's the typical, but that's kind of a common breakfast that you see, like coffee with a little bit, you know, of breakfast. Now I don't know if people are snacking before lunch. Usually for me, because I'm usually eating breakfast around 8 a.m., I feel like I usually need something before lunchtime, like around 11, I need like a snack. But I'm debating if it's because of maybe not drinking enough water or something. But I've really been trying to limit my breakfast from not eating like a whole giant breakfast. And I do try to front load my energy in the mornings. Now I've noticed if I have yerba mate or just black coffee or bulletproof coffee first thing in the morning, I mean, this is probably TMI, but it's a good way to kind of flush out your system. I know people don't talk about pooping a lot, but it's like that to me is one way to make sure it happens in a controlled environment when I want it to happen. It's not like I'm starting work and I'm in the middle of like a session on the phone and then it's like, oh shoot, I gotta go take care of this now, you know, in the middle of a meeting or whatever. Like, you know, even when I was working not from home, I would, you know, be able to do this. And so that's one thing I noticed. Just those kind of breakfast choices, very important. I noticed my energy is pretty good. Most of these people get exercise every day. Um, yeah, most of the people I would say get exercise. Like Einstein took walks. I have a friend who walks around 7 to 8 miles every day. I hadn't seen him for some months, and when I saw him, I was like very impressed with how fit he got. I mean, he does other exercise too, but he's in really dang good shape. Compared to when I met him, and he was in decent shape before, like, but he's definitely taken ownership of his physique, and he definitely is in very good shape. But definitely, the sleep, the amount of hours of a work week, the types of breakfasts that people eat, the getting exercise, things like walking, getting outside, getting fresh air. I kind of like to go on drives. It's kind of hard in LA because like there's traffic, so it's not like that good. But there are certain places where I just like to drive my car around. The motivation sometimes is to go to one of the parks near there where I want to be, and so I'll drive around, go to a little park, get in some stretching and stuff like that. And usually I just hope nobody's there. Because sometimes I don't like to be in nature spaces when there's other people sometimes. And I don't know. Let me see. 1 second. Okay, so yeah, those are things that I notice, so since I've decreased to a 4-hour work week, I've definitely noticed it is easier to take control of things kind of spiraling. Like if I have one poor night of sleep, that's 1 out of 4 work days. I feel like I'm a lot more efficient. Um, I honestly, to be honest, I could do my job in 3 days a week. Um, I feel like having to work 40 hours a week is excessive for the kind of work that I do. Um, and so, yeah, I definitely noticed that, you know, um, I definitely noticed that we were, um, basically not, I don't know how to explain this, guys. Like, the best I can explain it, I guess, is have you, like, if for people who study long term, you will understand this. So, for example, um, if you have been in an environment where you, um, like if you've been in an environment where you were able to basically, um, study, and like say for example you have a 16-week semester, which is common, but if you've ever had a time where you've had to study like self-paced, you kind of start noticing, okay, this doesn't take 16 weeks per class. Like if you're taking multiple classes, yes, but you can usually find a sweet spot for studying when you don't have to sit through lectures on someone else's time, drive to the location, park, walk to class, drive back, walk back to your car, drive back home, find time to study. When you don't have that whole procedure to do, you can usually find ways to get the work done more efficient and faster than you would when somebody gives you like a 16-week semester with 4 courses or something and tells you this is what you need to do. Like if you're focused and your motivation is in it and you're able to kind of just like take all the emotional part out of it and just purely study, you can get that done really quickly. And I'm finding with work, that's the same thing. I know what I need to do, how many hours and minutes I need to log for productivity, how long it takes to get there, and how many calls I need to make to get there, and what the paperwork looks like to stay on top of everything. I know what that looks like. I know exactly what that looks like. And so when I notice, okay, I'm working 8 hours a day, but basically if I'm even moving slow, I'm finished in like 6 hours. That's counting a 30-minute lunch and 2 10-minute breaks. I'm done in 6 hours when I'm moving my slowest. And then there's like another 2 hours of filler. And so, basically, just going 1 hour kind of, just going like 1 or 2 hours kind of, having time where you know that you don't have to work. It's like, well, what's the motivation to get more ahead? Like the way my job is set up is we have monthly goals. So every month the goals reset. So there's no real point to finishing all your work as fast as you possibly can at the beginning of the month, because then what are you going to do for the rest of the month? And so you do spread it out just in a way that makes sense. So every week you're doing a certain amount of things. And I found that, the sweet spot really is 3 days. I can do all the work in 3 days if I'm working a full shift each day. It might be a little bit of a crunch. 4 days, it's still too much time. 5 days is an excessive amount of time. So when I started realizing, okay, I'm spending 16 extra hours a week, logged in, focused on stuff 16 hours is a lot of hours, and if I can still reach productivity in 3 days, it's things like that where you just kind of think about it and you're like, I could have 16 hours of my week to do other stuff, So lately what I've been doing, is training more, getting training during work. We have nice 2-hour training some days, and it's very helpful because if we didn't have that, I don't know. Sometimes I'm like, I really am done, for the day. But I have noticed my energy definitely has been recovered, just having one less work day a week. And it's also because I'm not really into my job too much right now. But that's kind of what I'm learning. Like I'm studying a lot of different types of schedules, routines, kind of finding some patterns in them. But I'm definitely noticing that at this time coming out of the pandy, people do have a different focus a lot of times. And I know a lot of people, are trying to find this like sweet spot between their work and lifestyle balance. I'm not the kind of person who doesn't like work. Anybody who knows me knows that I like working. The majority of my hobbies are still busy work related, not related to my actual job, but you could potentially make them into jobs. Like I like to work. I like to do stuff. I like to produce things and make things. That's what I like to do. I like to see progress, and have projects that I work on and, hit goals, make goals for myself and just reach them. That's kind of what drives me a lot of the time. And so when I have like a work schedule where it's like, forced, a little bit on the forced end, where it's like, okay, like I know corporate America needs me to be working a 40-hour work week, but I don't really need to work 40 hours. Like it's almost like you're paying me too much. Well, you're not even paying me that much money, but you're paying me too much money to work, 5 days. Like just let me work 3 days and I'll get the job done. Like it's not going to be done any less well in quality. Like it's still going to be done very good. So that's kind of just what I'm seeing. It's something that I'm kind of interested to talk about, and interested to kind of see what other people might think about it. I would definitely recommend studying the routines of people, maybe not one specific person only, but like I was mentioning, like other people who are maybe like millennials who I follow. I kind of notice they kind of have a rhythm to themselves too. There is this kind of, there was something mentioned that like in my researching that I liked to hear, that kind of solidified something for me, because I was noticing it too. And it's kind of the last point I'll make. But they were talking about, how American culture is this grind culture. So when it comes to our actual engagement with what we do, we're almost seen as lazy. Like I've mentioned before, I remember before when I was working like 3 jobs basically, and I've talked about this before, but I was working like 3 jobs, but none of them were full time. I was tutoring, I was teaching an adult, like a senior adult age computer class, and I was doing like web design for like freelance work, and I was basically, um, like, you know, I would wake up kind of later in the day. Like that was one point in my life where I did wake up later, because it was maybe like a year and a half of this schedule. I woke up later than usual, so I wasn't waking up like 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock like most people. I was waking up closer to like 9:30. But I was working until like I would leave for work sometimes at like as late as like 2:30 p.m. and wouldn't get back till maybe 8 p.m. or something like that, depending what kind of job I was doing and what day of the week it was. But for some reason, you know, let me see. Yeah, she basically like people were basically telling me, like, not people, but I've mentioned before how I was raised around a lot of judgmental people, and so the people that I was raised around were kind of talking about, like I kind of overheard one person saying like, oh, like it's nice that you don't have to work or something like that, like something, I was in one group at somebody's house group thing that we were doing, and I was like, who said I'm not working? Like, and then one of my friends was kind of like, I noticed he was the one who said it, and he was just like, oh, I thought you didn't have a job. It's like, what makes you think I don't have a job? I have 3 jobs, it's like, you know, so he was kind of talking crap about that, and like, oh, like, because you wake up at this hour and all this kind of stuff. And people kind of like assuming that you're lazy or don't work hard. It's like, yeah, I'm working at least 8 hours a day, if not more. I'm not getting paid for a lot of the work, but I'm working. Lesson planning takes time. I wasn't getting paid for lesson planning. I wasn't getting paid for the driving, commuting at least 1 hour one way to work. All that kind of stuff. Setting up computers, breaking down, the computer setup room to like put it back in order the way it was before our class got there, and all this kind of stuff. Like, it took time, effort, work, energy. I was getting paid for the hours I taught the class. I wasn't getting paid for anything before or after. Same with tutoring. Same with web design. I wasn't getting paid for researching stuff or any of that. I was getting paid for the end product. And so, I mean, it was kind of like I didn't have anything else to do. Like, I was studying for the GRE and doing that. And so, I was like, I don't really care if I'm not getting paid, because I didn't really have like bills like that. So I was like, it was enough money, even though I was working. I was way overworking. But, I noticed basically, just how society interprets that, how society interprets not waking up at the crack of dawn, how society interprets that, how it interprets, you wake up later in the day, you start later in the day. Most people who know me know that it's easy for me to get up around 5:30 in the morning. And it's kind of weird how that is like, people tend to respect it. They're like, oh, you wake up so early. I'm tired, It's not like I'm sleeping at like 9 or 8 o'clock at night. Like, I'm tired when I'm up, like that. But, people respect it more. They're like, oh, you wake up early. You must be very diligent and hardworking and, like, focused. And, like, not all the time. I'm fatigued and I lose focus and I can be all over the place totally. But it's kind of just an interesting thing to note. Yeah, to me, it's just an interesting thing to note that there's people who, you know, I don't know. There's people basically who just think that way about our grind culture. School usually starts at 8 a.m., maybe 8:30 a.m. Work usually starts by 9, maybe 8 o'clock in the morning. You're there 8 hours. You're at school for, I don't know, like 7 hours. Like, you're busy, You're taught to be busy from the time you're like 5 years old. You're basically pulling like a 7-hour shift. All the way till when you're in college or whatever, and then once you're working, you're having 8-hour shifts for 40 hours a week. But it's a lot of the day. It's a whole lot of the day, and I do think that the thing that stuck with me the most really was that whole idea about hustle culture, about just perceptions of laziness, how if you work less than 40 hours a week, you're almost seen as lazy. If you work later in the day, like, I would have assumed that Einstein was waking up at 4 in the morning or doing one of those weird, like, never sleeping 8-hour shifts and sleeping 3-4 hours at a time, like Napoleon or some people, have other kind of weird sleep patterns like that. Some really successful people have like some strange sleep patterns. So I think it is more rare that you hear of people sleeping like the 10 hours and then adding a nap in the middle of the day, sleeping over 10 hours a day. I mean, it seemed to be beneficial, right? I mean, he did a lot. Einstein did a lot. So, and all these other people, I don't really hear that many people preaching sleep deprivation. I mean, our society preaches it, but when you look around and look at really successful people, other than the ones who are waking up early in the morning, you don't really hear a lot of people saying deprive yourself of sleep, sleep less. If they are sleeping less, they do tend to try to do something different, like nap, or they break down their schedule. They're not grinding to the bone like we're kind of taught to grind to the bone like that. They're not. And so I don't really think that a lot of what we've been taught as far as this, at least the 40-hour work week, all this kind of stuff, like looking at the research and looking at just, I guess if you want to call them case studies of other people's lives and just even modern day people's lives that are successful, when you start studying them, and studying them, just their routines and their habits and how they do things and what they eat and what kind of exercises they're doing, like you do see these common themes, the coffee, the breakfast in the morning, the certain types of breakfast, the eggs. I don't know what it is with eggs in the morning, but there's the the coffee or tea or whatever, once or twice a day. There's a lot, guys. There's a lot to notice, and it's really like pretty fascinating. It's a very interesting kind of a lifestyle. that we're taught about, and I would just encourage people to challenge it. Because, I talk to my coworkers a lot, and the theme that we all just kind of talk about a lot is like how tired we are, how fatigued we are, how much we can't focus, how exhausted we are, how unmotivated we are. And, it's like I work with a lot of people. We're trying to help people. And the people I work with, a lot of us are suffering, and it's like, well, if you're trying to help people, you shouldn't be having to suffer at the same time. And I think the more stressful your job actually is, the more you probably would need to consider these different types of routine options for your own health. I mean, like, I know in I don't know when I started developing gray hair, but I think in 2019 was when it was like a little noticeable, like a little bitty, like few strands. It's 2022. I've got like a completely gray hairline now. Like, and, that's not from sleeping well or eating well or exercising well. It's not from that. It's from the opposite. It's from, 2 years of a pandemic, just grinding to the bone and overly stressing, dealing with inflation stressors, dealing with housemate and moving stressors, dealing with, the field that I work in mental health, with all of our clients having way more severity of issues, less resources to help them, a lot more severe cases coming across our desks and into our offices, just a lot of complete chaos. I'm living proof. But yeah, I don't know. Like, I find this kind of stuff motivating to talk about. I know, it's hard to kind of find something that is going to be helpful and useful and something we can use to protect our energies around certain types of lifestyles. I think this is one way to start. Study the greats, study how they lived. They were doing something right, and it was more than just natural ability. You can have all the natural ability in the world, but if you can't harness it and actually focus it where it needs to be focused, and like have your mood being decently good, and you're gonna have issues. And I mean, everyone has issues, but I mean, you're gonna have issues that maybe you're not gonna reach the full potential of where you can be. I think humans are capable of a lot more than we really give ourselves credit for, and it's easy to kind of just get stuck in a moment of something and just be like, this sucks, today sucks, my energy sucks, and it's only 24 hours. Once you sleep, you get a restart and you'll feel different the next day. Who knows if it's going to be better or worse, but you have a chance every day to kind of make different choices. And so it's just a consistency of those two. If it's consistently unhealthy, you're going to consistently not feel good. And sometimes the unhealthy, you can still eat right, you can still exercise right, but if you're not sleeping good, or if your job is even just a schedule that's making it so you can't sleep good, or if your breakfast isn't something that helps promote like mental energy and focus, it's back to the basics, which sounds maybe stupid, but I know I need to hear those messages often, so I hope that these podcast episodes, hopefully the specific ones are tailored to those who need to hear the ones that they tune into. And with that, thanks for listening.